Today I'm making a cherry soap, which kind of looks a little bit cakey, I would say, because I'm going to be putting some oatmeal in the bottom, which is not only great for skin, but it gives a really good effect as well. It's going to have 3 different layers, so I've got my melt and pour all cut out into the amounts I need for each layer. Got my fragrance, got my colour, got my alcohol, scales, my digital thermometer, best thing in the world. Okay, so let's start with the first base. I'm going to get this one melted down and then add the oats. Okay, so this one's nearly ready to go. Microwave on medium, it doesn't take long. There's a little bit in the bottom there that's just going to melt under its own steam. Okay. Right, the bases that I'm using, the melt and pour base that I'm using for these are like really luxury ones, so you don't need to add any butters or oils or anything. It's fantastic, I love it. Right, so let's get some fragrance in there. Way out. Absolutely love the fragrance for this. It's almost like a summer cocktail. I just want to swig it. Okay. Give that a bit of a mix. Right, now, with the bottom layer, you don't need to worry about your temperature, and because you're going to be adding the oats to it, it is going to set quite quickly. So I would recommend getting your second batch, your second layer, ready to go into the microwave and get that one ready. There is an element of waiting around with the temperatures, with layering, because you have to make sure your bottom layer is at the right temperature before you put your top one on, because otherwise it'll melt it and then you get kind of a funny pattern, not the nice clean cut layers that you want. Right, so let's get the oats in. Okay, give that a quick stir, because like I say, the oats is going to cool it down quite quickly. So stir that around. Okay, move that out there. Right, and get that in there. There we are. Okay, that's it. Quick squirt. Now get your second batch on in the microwave while that's setting and doing its thing. Just so you can see, that's all leveled itself out nicely there with the oats. As long as you don't put too much in, then you end up with kind of lumps and bumps everywhere. So that's setting up now. Ready for the next layer. Okay, so the second layer is all melted and nice and runny. So now in regards to layering, you need to make sure that your bottom layer and the layer that you're going to put on top of it are at the right temperatures. The bottom layer needs to be able to hold the weight without breaking of the top layer, and if this layer is too hot, it's just going to melt right through. Okay, so currently this is at 63 degrees C, which is in Fahrenheit is 146 Fahrenheit, and this one is sitting at 103, which is 40 degrees in degrees C. Okay, so we need to let this one cool just a little bit more. We want it to around 59, I would say, and we want this one ideally close to 100. Now I do a little pat test on my bottom layers, and then you can tell if it's ready. Okay, so if you just kind of touch it, your finger doesn't go through it, it moves a little bit, but it's not breaking. And you think, I'd maybe give that just a tiny bit more. Okay, and then it's probably going to be ready to take the weight of the other layer. A word of warning, don't leave that too long thinking I'll just let it set and then it'll be fine and nothing's going to melt, because what will happen then is your layers won't stick. If it gets too cool, you'll get it out of your mould and it'll either fall straight off, or when you cut it, it'll then fall apart. Right, so how are we doing? Fahrenheit. Right, so this is at 59, so we're getting close. This one's at 39. I think pretty much there. Okay, so let's get our fragrance in. Now I add a little drop of colour to this layer because it's cherry and I want it to be very red, just a little bit for this one. Again, I'm using the Super Strength water-based colours, sorry, because I really like them. You need hardly any. And it gives you really good colours, especially in the clear. It's fantastic in the clear. Right, okay, so remember, don't let this cool too much because it'll go gloopy and then you'll not be able to pour it. Right, so quick spray of the bottom layer with your rubbing alcohol. And here we go. And goes this layer. Now I would pour your first bit very slowly, just to let it all get covered, so you're not chucking a load on the top straight away. Yeah, just pour that all around. Looks like a strawberry milkshake. Okay, and spritz with alcohol. And get ready with your next layer in the microwave or your bain-marie, whatever it is you're using. You don't need to rush too much with this one because that's quite a big layer and it's not got the oatmeal in that's going to cool it down any. So just put this one in now. Sometimes you might have to, you know, this one's ready, but this is not quite there. So you might have to just pop it back in the microwave for a couple of seconds and just, you know, hold the temperature until it's right. Not a problem. I'm just going to show you what the layer looks like when it's not ready. So this is actually at 44 degrees C, 113 Fahrenheit. Oh, fug. Right, so when you just push the top, you can see it's really thin and it's moving. And you know that if you push it too much, you're going to put your finger through it. So that's just a little skin. That is nowhere near ready to be poured. It'll just all pour through the thing. You're looking for resistance, where you know it's going to take the weight of the next layer. Hopefully you can see that there. Okay, so we just got to wait a bit longer. Okay, our top layer is melted, ready. This is still a bit hot and this is still not quite there. It's moving still, but not as much as it was. So I just give that a little bit longer. So that's at 39 degrees C, 102 Fahrenheit. And this one's still sitting at 60, so we've got a couple of degrees to go. I've got these to put on the top, just little embeds that I made earlier. In fact, I made them just before I started and they're already ready, so they're just going to sit on the top so they look like cherries. Cute. Cute. Also depends on what your environment is. I'm in my shop / workshop, which is freezing all the time, hence why I'm always wearing a coat. So my layers do tend to kind of sit a bit quicker, set a bit quicker. If you're working somewhere where it's quite hot or in the summer, you know, you could be waiting a little while. But yeah, there is an element of just waiting. You need to get the timings right and the temperatures or it won't work. And then you'll be kicking yourself, saying, why didn't I wait? Right, I think we're nearly there, a couple more minutes. Okay, we're nearly there, so it's time for fragrance and colour. This should be like a nice blood red. Yeah. Oh, it smells so good. I wish there was smell-o-vision. I love this fragrance, one of my favourites. Right, so what are we at? So this is sitting out. This one's nearly ready to pour. We're at 60, 39, 102. Nearly ready. Okay, we're ready. While you're waiting for the temperatures, always keep stirring the layer that's waiting, because if you leave it sitting, it gets a skin on the top, and then when you mix it in, it's not when you stir it, it's not always hot enough to melt that skin that's sat on there. So you can end up with like little floaty bits. So I always say keep giving it a little stir. Don't worry about the bubbles because that's what your alcohol's for. Right, so this is 56 degrees, 133 Fahrenheit. It's 39. Let's go. Remember your alcohol? It's your friend with layers. Get it on there. Alright, let's pour this one on. Plus we got my fingers on it. Okay, again, just start slow. Ooh. There we go. And alcohol on the top. Ready your bubbles. Now I'm going to put these in. What's the embeds? Embeds. It depends. If you would kind of drop it in now, it would sink to the bottom on the layer. If that's what you want, that's fine. But I'm just going to wait for a bit because I want them to sit on the top. But you don't want to leave it too long because then it might not stick. So and then you can kind of manipulate them around. Don't be afraid to get your fingers in there. So we'll just give that a second. Unfortunately, you don't really know how it's going to behave until you put your first one in. And then you can kind of gauge if you need to wait or whatever. Okay. Should we pop one on? Should we check the temperature? Yeah. 51. You want just like, it's going to start to form a little skin. And that's usually when it's good to start getting your top bits on. Okay, so see, you're a little bit of the skin, it's almost like jelly that's not quite set. In fact, it's very similar to jelly. Okay, let's pop one on and see what happens. There we go, it's sitting there. Quick squirt, I forgot, and it's starting to sink, which is fine, so we'll maybe just wait a bit. No, in fact. So you've got to kind of eyeball it, it just depends how you want it. That's the beauty of handmade things, isn't it? The thing is, what you'll find is you'll put one in and it sinks, and then you'll wait too long, and then the rest are sat on the top. See, like that one just did. So what I would recommend is just making sure that you break through that little layer, just so that some of the soap is in contact with the soft stuff underneath. Because you don't want it to just slide right off the top. What's that? Now, when it's like this, when you're starting to get the skin, you can see how those two have just kind of pushed themselves together. You can just get in there and pull them apart. Don't be afraid to get your hands in there if you need to. If you don't need to, leave well alone. Right, I've got two left here. Should I try and poke them in? If I need to. No, I'm quite happy with that. Right, I've just got a little bit that I'm going to drizzle on the top. So that looks like a thing. I'm just going to quickly melt that. There's only a tiny bit in there, so it won't take long. Right, so I've got my little bit that's going to be like sauce on the top. Now this is tricky when you're just doing a little bit, because you want it warm enough so that it's runny and good for pouring. But you can't have it too hot because it'll just melt right through and then it'll merge rather than sit on the top. So you've just got to really keep an eye on it. Because there's not much, it loses its heat quite quickly. So let's get this ready. Ready? So the alcohol helps the layers to stick as well. So come on, what are we at? 60. Just move it around. Get some air in there. See, it's starting to thicken. Right, let's go for it. Now I'm pouring slowly from up high so that I can control it. Don't worry about getting it up the sides. I use the side just to get my, so I know that I'm pouring it at the right speed. Yeah, I've lost it again. There we go. Mm-hmm. There we are. Finito. And there she is. A cherry soap cake. And I'll show you once it's ready in a hand. Thanks for watching, everybody.